Blender 4.1 is out today and it comes with dozens of new features and improvements, although some of them you'll never even notice. So here are the 18 most useful things that you'll actually use in Blender 4.1. I'm Dude Blender and let's jump right in. I have the previous version 4.0 to the left and the new version 4.1 so that we can compare if there are any changes. And of course I'm using the actual release, not the beta, not the release candidate, because sometimes there are changes from those versions, so whatever you see here is the real thing. The Bone Collections panel has been updated. It now has a solo toggle to hide collections that are not soloed. They've also changed the location of the active collection identifier from the left of the name to the right. And it's now an outline if the collection is not empty and solid if it's not empty and it's the active collection. Pressing I in the viewport no longer shows the insert keyframe menu. It now reads the user preferences, animation, keyframes panel in the new default key channel section. And now pressing I keys based on this selection, which might save you a bunch of clicks. The menu is still available with a new hotkey which is now K, while Shift K is now the hotkey for the Set Active Keying Set menu, and this one will take priority over the user preferences. You'll see that it's now set here, and now if I press I, it will key that selection. The graph editor has now an auto lock key axis option under the view menu. Auto lock key axis that locks the movement on the axis. This is off and this is on. You'll see that you can only move it in one axis, which is very useful because you're usually only adjusting one of the axes, either moving the key on the timeline or adjusting its value. Every compositor node is now supported on the viewport compositor. You can turn it on by going to the rendered viewport shading, and in this menu, you can turn it off, turn it on for camera view, or always. The split viewer node has been replaced by the split node, which now provides a socket for the output. The Musgrave texture geometry node has been removed and its functionality added into the noise texture node. The new menu switch allows you to create a menu of options and switch by name, as opposed to the switch node that already existed, which only gave you two different options. Index switch is similar, but you switch by selecting the index number of the item. Since this is controlled by a number, you could potentially use math to control the output. The simpler rotate rotation node replaces the rotate Euler node by removing the axis angle option. The new active camera node returns the current camera object, which is of course super helpful if you have a multi-camera setup. In 4.0 we had the Shade Auto Smooth option, but in 4.1 that one's gone and we now have Shade Smooth by Angle. We also got the Smooth by Angle node group that can easily be added like any other modifier. You click on Add and start typing Smooth, you got it here, Smooth by Angle, and you'll see that it creates a geometry nodes modifier with this node tree. If you click on Ignore Sharpness, now this works as an Auto Smooth. The Normals panel that contained the Auto Smooth angle is now gone from the Data Properties tab as it's no longer needed. So we now have two options. Geometry nodes, which is non-destructive, and we can change the angle at any point from the modifier stack, or hard setting the edge sharpness with Shade Smooth by Angle. If I tap into edit mode, you'll see that the edges get marked as sharp based on the angle you entered. Point and spotlights have now a soft fall off checkbox, which is enabled by default, and it helps to avoid sharp boundaries when light intersects geometry. You'll see that it does eliminate the sharp boundary created by that intersection. The color picker has been updated with a larger value slider and a smarter visual feedback while selecting hue and saturation. I kind of liked better the dots on the value bar because the slider is kind of harder to see when it's around this area. Also, I would have liked the color inside the circle to be solid instead of just magnifying the area to make it easy to know what color you're actually picking. The rounding in the menus was slightly improved. Node linking was improved. It's now slightly harder to misclick and start box select when trying to link two nodes. There's also a larger snap area when connecting to a socket. It seems to be such a small change, but I actually love it. Double clicking on the outliner now selects the object and all of its children, which is super useful in case you want to duplicate the whole thing or delete the whole thing. If you go to View, Navigation, Walk Navigation, the walk mode now supports local up and down with the R and F keys. Of course, if the gravity is turned on, this doesn't work. Now when you go to camera view, there's a gizmo that locks to camera view. Now if you navigate, the view is locked, so it's easier to set your camera in the exact position that you want it. Then you can quickly turn it off by clicking on it again. Previously you had to go to the view panel and lock camera to view here, so this is great because it actually saves you a bunch of clicks. And there you go, 18 of the most useful changes in Blender 4.1. I'm Dude Blender, happy blending.